Barely.
Okay, because you know why, John? Because we're live right now for all the fans.
Right.
This is True OF Entertainment.
Welcome to the Lost Dollar Business Club, where we talk about business, and not just business. We talk about what makes businesses go up and what makes businesses go down. If you're interested in businesses, this is where it is. We talk about the global economy. We talk about global politics. We talk about everything and anything business related that affects your life on a global scale as well as a local scale. And don't miss after the show, Lost and Found.
Hey, we're here.
Yeah, good morning. And surprise, Streamyard has not taken my audio away. Hey, happy day.
You know, and we pay extra for that.
We got you back, David.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Okay.
As long as somebody's got my back. That's what's
well, you know. Well, your Tahitian boys that I thought oiled you down had your back, but that's probably another story in another show. So that's a different show, not this show.
Well, we've got some big topics today on this fine live Friday morning. BYD beating Tesla in Europe. That's big. That's big. The Chinese company is beating Tesla in Europe. I think there's a lot of people championing that. And Boeing is just narrowly escaping charges for their 737 MAX crashes. Yeah. We've also got Elon Musk. We'll talk about his Starbase in Texas. Oh yeah, he's got a private city for Elon Musk and his Starbase Mars aspirational astronauts.
And for all these pilgrims, it's a place for the pilgrims to go and worship.
That's right. You need that in the middle of Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. John's got some talk on Swedes, the billionaires in Sweden.
That's right.
Really, there are a lot of them.
Yeah. Proportionally, they have more billionaires than the U.S. So there you go.
Not more than China, though.
That's right. It's all proportional.
And then we also have Apple in China, which is a new book that came out, which is a fascinating read. But sorry, David, no pictures. But it's a fascinating read, so we're going to talk about that as well today. Not with the author. And by the way, I just want to say this. So last night I saw the new Mission Impossible. This is before we get into the serious stuff. With Tommy Cruise. And I will tell you, superb. But a very good movie. Yeah, I enjoyed it tremendously.
Tom Cruise doesn't do bad movies. Tom Cruise doesn't.
Listen, when he did the unicorn thing when he was like 18 years old, that wasn't a good movie. But anyway, all right, he dressed up like not one of his shining moments. However, this movie, excellent. And then I've been noticing on YouTube and Instagram and all this that Tommy's all over doing interviews, and I'm like, Tommy, what about us at 2OF Entertainment? Why aren't you coming here and letting us, the Four Muscatels, interview you about this new movie, or just interview you? Because John would ask fascinating questions. Not really. But anyway, it would be a fascinating thing. I don't think John's ever seen a movie. That's why it'll be fascinating. But the rest of us have seen your movies. Maybe David hasn't seen. David, these are talkies, by the way. So I think it would be fascinating.
Are they in color? Are they in color?
Actually, yeah, they're new thing in color. They're talking. It's a whole. The guy doesn't play the piano anymore. So, Tommy, if you're watching, come on the show. Let's talk about your movies.
You got to get Tom Cruise on the show. Where's his publicist?
Come on down. That's what we're saying. Come on down.
Come on down, Tom.
Well, in talking to us.
And this is why John is no longer the show. No, so
it's a business show, and Tom Cruise is all about business.
Yeah, let me tell you.
All right, okay.
Tom Cruise is probably one of the smart, other than his little thing he had with Oprah and with the other idiot, the guy on NBC. He's a very smart business person. He's producing these movies, and he's making, as one of the comedians said, a boatload of money. And so that itself would be a fascinating dialogue.
Sure, yeah.
And the Matt Damon story where he talks about how he jumped off the Burj Khalifa, and he was talking about how did you do it? And he said, my stunt coordinator said it was too dangerous and it couldn't be done. And Matt said to him, what did you do after that? He goes, I got a new stunt coordinator. And in this movie, he hangs on a biplane, and I'm not talking sexual. He hangs on a biplane, and I will tell you how either he has a death wish or something, but unbelievable stunts. And he really does them, right? Because they show you how they do it and all these little things. Unbelievable. So yeah, if I've since Risky Business always been a Tommy Cruise fan. So if Tommy, you're around, you want to come on the show, let us know. Have your people talk to our people. We'll make a lunch out of it. It'll be fun. Anyway, and John won't be there since he's never seen your movies, and we'll show David one of your talkies in color, and it'll be very exciting. All right, now let's get down to the serious stuff. But I just wanted to put that out there.
That's a good one.
He's going to be on the cigar show.
Shall we have a serious advert that gets
very serious advert?
Sure, why not?
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bendicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bendicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club. I always think we're going to space.
Wait. Before we get started, we have live news. This is what's great about a live show. Trump administration, the guy, the orange man, President threatens EU and Apple with new tariffs up to 50%. Just so we're clear. So there you go. Trump administration escalate the trade war it would impose a 50% tariffs on products from the EU because talks on the deal aren't going anywhere. He also told Tim Cook that in the United States, he would do a 25% tariff. We're not going to talk about federal layoffs or student visas, but there you go. There's some live news for you that you won't get anywhere else because you're watching our show. So we figured we'd help you out. So there you go. Live news. Just came across the ticker.
50%. Yeah. I mean, but what is Europe take out of America in a way of product? Most of the stuff that comes into Europe are services, which are not taxed under the tariffs. So, and who wants to buy an American car that's going to break down, or Harley Davidson that won't get to the end of the street? I mean, which, not really important. It's great for you lot, oh, great, because don't forget, guys, I mean, the EU was set up specially to screw the US. There you go. You'll find that in your history books.
Is it working?
No, it's just bollocks because that's exactly what it wasn't set up for that. It was set up,
you're ripping us off for $250 billion. It's
for what?
Trade
deficit. Yeah,
no, John, you've got it wrong because the thing is that the way that Trump looks at it is that he includes the VAT. He sees that as part of the tariff, but everybody in Europe pays the VAT on top of it. So there's a minimal amount. There's hardly any agricultural products because they don't like the GM food. They don't like the way that the beef.
The car manufacturer makes food. Wow.
So we're not. It's not really going to affect Europe that much.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Well, I mean, the Europeans, they don't want the American cars anyway. But
that's true.
Do they
talking about cars?
No, they don't.
Yes,
simply before we go to the BYD, because you have to pay. See, the thing is, they come in. Let's say bald. There's nothing on them, so they all have to be registered so that they are acceptable to be run on European roads. So it costs you another $10,000 to have the lights changed, to have this done and that done. So it's virtually minimal. So there you go.
You think it's too many rules and regulations over there, David?
Well, no more than there is in the US. So
we don't have them anymore. We don't have that. We have an oligarch running it. Yeah, we don't have. We have oligarchs running our country now. We don't have it.
Yeah, you just have executive. You have executive orders. That's the thing, of course. Just one thing before we go on to BYD, what I don't understand, right, is that if Trump was on the weekend saying how gasoline's down, food prices are down, everything's tickety boo, everything's going great, everything's wonderful. So why is there still a state of emergency that allows him to continue to write endless these what are the things that he's always he's done like 100 of them already?
Executive orders.
Executive orders. That's what I'm looking for. Why is he continuing to do that if there's no longer a crisis? That's
it's standard presidential practice. It's standard presidential.
Yeah, not the way he does it, though, Michael. He does
like
an
emergency. You don't need an emergency.
You don't need an emergency to do.
You don't need an emergency to do an executive order. He's doing what Steve Bannon said. He said, Steve Bannon says you show 3 or 4 things at the wall every day, and the press will pick up at least on one of them. And he said, you don't care which one they pick up, because then you behind the curtains, you do what you want to do. And that's what he's doing. He's doing the Steve Bannon playbook. Steve Bannon also said in an FT interview that Trump is going to definitely run and be president for a 3rd term. See ya. So time to leave America.
Oh, it's a flood the zone, isn't it? That's bad.
That's what Bannon says. Flood the zone, and then you go from there.
Anyway, so I was flooding the zone here with my little rant, trying to get on to BYD.
Nah, nobody cares anymore. No, I'm just kidding. BYD, I love that car company. And let me tell you something. Before we get into BYD, the book Apple in China, if you read it, it's got words. Once again, no pictures. Explains why BYD and Huawei and all these others are the #1 companies globally in what they do, thanks to Apple, writing $55 billion a year checks, if you will, to China over the last 20 years to help build up the Chinese infrastructure, supply chain, and whatnot. So,
wow. So all the Apple fanboys have been supporting China directly now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's why BYD, if you look at it, and so BYD is beating Tesla because Tesla's a piece of crap. Okay, this is just full stop. It's crappy. The worst car in the world, my opinion. Sorry, Elon. It's just, and so is a Cybertruck. That's a piece of shit too. So BYD makes an excellent product. So does Lee and the rest of them. But BYD has technology that's far surpassing anything Porsche, Rolls-Royce has. And they build a quality car like Porsche and Rolls-Royce. But where they got all the technology, thank you, Apple, because what happened is when Apple went into China, they said to all the suppliers who are supplying them, you need to supply other people. You don't want to be dependent on us. So they knew how to supply and how to get rare earth. And what they did by doing that is they went around and started to, hey, you can supply, we can teach you, supply, teach you. And then all of a sudden, all these companies that pop up now, thanks to Apple, there you go. So these Chinese companies, from drones to military to EVs to phones to John's sex dolls, all of that. I'm kidding. John doesn't have a drone. Anyway, for all of that, that's the what you call it. It's all thanks to Apple and other companies, but Apple's the one in the book that they pick on because of their infrastructure investment.
Who's the author of that? Who's the author of that?
Patrick Murphy, if I'm not mistaken.
Patrick.
I mentioned this.
Come on the phone. Go ahead, Don.
Either the last show or the previous show that Apple has over 10 years trained 28 million Chinese on and transferred knowledge. So this is just it's just
is that a bad thing then?
Absolutely, it's a bad thing when they don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right.
Here's the other thing.
Is it a bad thing because think of the value of Apple and how all the Americans are so proud of them because of the way it's done. So,
but here's the other thing that's interesting. Apple, the hypothesis from the author is Apple's talking about they're going to invest $500 million over the next 5 years in America, correct? He says Apple every year buys back $100 million of their stock. And who are their stockholders and shareholders and stakeholders? Americans. So how Apple is making Uncle Donnie happy is they're going to buy back every year $100+ million of stock and go, we invested in America. We bought back our stock. So as he said in the interview that I saw him on and in his book, you have to actually be very careful when they make these statements, because the statements they make, how do you say, are bullshit? And there you go. So that's why BYD is a #1 electric car in the world, because BYD has help from, if you will, Tim Cook and the boys, and it's made Apple what Apple, it made BYD and all these companies in China what they are today. So there you go.
I think Americans, you have to look in your own underwear then, because it appears that you've whatever problems you have, you've instigated them yourselves. You've taught the proverbial monkey to climb the tree, and then that's it. Off they go.
Yes, yeah.
So
failure of the corporates, the suite in the US, they couldn't see the long view. They just looked at the short view.
Well, you think they're still doing that? Don't you think we're still doing that? Is anybody looking at the long view?
Yeah, they're still doing
China.
it.
I mean, China's looking
now
at the long view.
Now it's too late.
Right.
It's a 30-year process to regain that.
Right.
Yeah.
It took 25 years of Apple investing in China with other U.S. companies to get them to where they are today. And I have nothing against that. What I do have is the fact that people now, and kudos to Trump in a way, complaining about it and going, look. The problem is that the look came too late. Reagan said greed is good, and corporate America went, ooh, greed is good. Done. And that was it. No one looked back. And we're at a point today, and if you talk to people outside the United States, we're not looked at as #1 event. We're looking like a little third world shithole country, and we're heading that direction. And nothing Donnie's going to do is going to get us out of it, because none of these companies are really doing anything. None of these companies are really doing anything to do for infrastructure, to bring manufacturing. No one's bringing anything back. We're investing in America. They can do a stock buyback, as this guy said. That's investing in America, because who's your shareholders? Americans. So China was very smart. They were like, come in and help us. We don't know anything. And so what Apple did in China is great. But what Apple could have done is done it here. And we then would be where Trump really wants us to be. And that, to me, is the most fascinating part of the whole read and the book, is that nobody seems to get that. So this Make America Great Again stuff, it's a cute slogan, not happening. We're great for democracy. We're not great on this other stuff. And the companies and the corporate leaders aren't going to do it. And just full stop.
But don't you think don't you think the vision of America is what is meant to persist? And there's been I mean, is this a different time than what happened in Japan, when everybody thought Japan was going to take over everything at one time? I mean, how is this different? Obviously, there's a lot of differences. There's a lot bigger population, but how do we find this mutual stewardship of these two massive countries, these two massive economies, instead of this adversarial, zero-sum game?
Well, in my opinion, there's a need to be a zero-sum adversarial anything. This, tariff that's all bullshit. Like, enough with that. There's no adversarial. China doesn't care. China's laughing all the way to the proverbial bank. America's the one who cares, because it's like we have unemployment, blah, 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 and it keeps going on. The problem is not China. And the problem is not America. It's not even, and I know a lot of people are going to have a heart attack when I say this, Donnie Trump. Donnie's just trying to do what Donnie thinks is right. Old school, just doing it in a wrong way. That's fine. The problem is Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, Jamie Dimon, who's going to be the first CEO of $1 trillion bank.
Right.
You can go down the list of, that's the problem.
The massive
problem is just
CEOs.
Right. Yeah. Corporate greed is the problem. Corporate, because, I'm the CEO, I need to make Elon Musk $55 billion. No, you don't. These are the problems. The oligarchs are the problems. It's not China. It's not the U.S. It's not India. It's not Pakistan. Those are not the problems. They're just taking advantage of a situation because we, Americans, stupid. Because we're like, ooh, greed is good and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Now you're right. And now you have no plan. China has 100 or 1,000-year plan. And they're not deviating. They're going, they've had it since now, and it's not changed.
I think, Stephen, that it's kind of linked to, I think it was Michael that shared it in the group about the educational system in the US, so that's all going tits up. And it's the same in Western Europe as well. They're just, the birth population is going down, and so there's going to be a huge hole in literally in hands that are going to do the work. And if you look to the east, there's an abundance of people and an abundance of becoming more and more educated people who are quite happy to put their shoulders to the wheel, because it's their time now. It's like everybody in the West, I include Europe as well. We're all just fat and kicking back.
Everything is cyclical anyway.
And enjoying everything, and then you think, and we're all surprised that people who haven't got 2 cents to rub together, that they're working twice as hard, and are prepared to do that. It's we're all asleep at the wheel here.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Michael, yes, it is cyclical. So the last time China was a superpower was about from like 1200 CE to 1408 CE, where they sailed the world in these mega vessels and visited North America, Europe, everywhere. So that's when and then a guy named Zhao in 1408 or 1406 said, no more, we're closing off China. And that's what they did. So yes, it's cyclical. So 600 years ago, China was a superpower. And China now says, and Xi says, it's time for us to be a superpower again, not America. But not so much, I don't think, where they want to take over the world and nuke everybody, but economically. So the problem is, until you change the mindset of corporate America and boards, all the stuff that all of Trump's, I want this, and his tariffs and you're just hurting the people here in the United States. And I don't know if he realizes that yet. So maybe not. And neither does anybody in his cabinet. But you're only hurting the U.S. people. You're not hurting anybody else, because nobody abroad cares, because they'll trade with other partners. So the problem, once again, is in China. It is the CEOs of these companies.
Well, what you're alluding to is going right back to what was massive in 2010 and 2011 and even 2012 was the Occupy Wall Street movement, where people were they were at least pointing to the disparity between the super rich, and we're talking about super rich, versus everybody else, because the influence they wield is really unthinkable for most people.
I'm not worried about the super. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care if you have $1 or you have $1 trillion. I don't care about that. What I do care is that if you're the CEO of a company, I don't want to mention any companies, Apple, Microsoft,
they're huge.
Tesla, I think going on, and you're giving money to China to build factories and infrastructure and teaching them how to do supply chain. Once again, I'm okay with that. But why wouldn't you do it here? Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't do it here because you could make more money. You can make an extra $2. You can make an extra that.
Yeah,
and
cheap labor.
Right? But now the problem is there's this disparity, and the president is going, we want this and we want that and blah, blah. And I agree with what he wants to do. Like I said, I don't like the way he's doing it, because he's hurting the Americans, and tariffs aren't going to do it. You need to go after the companies. And hitting Apple with a 25% tariffs, people will still buy Apple products. So you have to start developing things here. And as John's pointed out, and Michael's pointed out, and even David, even if we start tomorrow, it's still going to take 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years to do what we did with China. So Apple's saying we're going to invest 500 million or billion or whatever, and they're going to buy back their stock and go, look, we're making an investment. That's bullshit. These chip companies that are building these factories that are never going to show up, once again, bullshit. Until you really put their feet to the fire and hold them accountable, then no, we are not. We are going to go down this slippery slope, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's it. And meanwhile, companies in the Far East and probably India are going to grow. And to Michael's point, cyclical. They will become the superpowers. And America is just going to be this little country, kind of like the UK. Like, oh, yeah, remember when the UK ruled the world? It'll be when the US was a superpower. The US will still have its nukes and its armies and its this and its that, but it won't have anything else. There's no and everything else.
The tariffs for Apple, they're only going to go on the expensive products anyway.
Yeah, but it's going to hurt the consumer. It doesn't do anything for.
Yeah, well, the consumers, they've said themselves that they'll only be in the top range. That the extra 25% will be added to it, because as people have got the money for it anyway. And then, because nobody's going to pay an extra 25% for, let's say, the entry level models. So there's going to be a real cut off. And you're going to see that in a lot of products as well. There's going to be a cut off where the tariffs are going to be absorbed. And then the people above that, they can afford it. They're going to take the hit. Then other people are just going to say, well, you know what? Don't want it. Why? I mean, yeah, do you really need all those plastic toys in the Happy Meals? Really? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, who's going to make them in the US? Nobody's going to do it for that sort of money. It's all fantasy world. I don't.
This is the problem. Child labor laws. Well, Michael.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Michael.
No, just maybe it goes back to a better, more value-driven society where we're not just peddling things that are unnecessary.
Right.
Get back to core what's important.
You know what we should just change?
So Happy Meals without plastic toys.
Happy Meals are out.
There you go.
Yeah, Happy Meals are out. But you know what we need to do? Get rid of the child labor laws. Put those 6-year-olds to work. They don't need an education anymore. Come on, you got little fingers. You can make the iPhone. You can screw little things in. And
there's a lot to be said for vocational training. I don't know that would be it. Yeah.
Look, the chip factories or the fabs, they are getting built, and TSMC is already starting, producing chips in one of the fabs already. So your concept that they're not going to build them, they are building them. They're there.
Well, and
there's John, in Arizona, you mean? So what you're talking about?
Yeah, in Arizona. Yeah.
But there's also a very exciting development near me, an hour away in Albany, which is amazing to me. Is they bought the nanotech, the Albany Nanotech Complex, which has been there since '99, on doing research and development on chips. They have a $400 million EUV machine, extreme ultraviolet machine, the one coming from ASML, who we've talked about before. This machine is going to be the first and only publicly owned machine of its sort in the United States for pure research and development. And companies that are doing R&D in the semiconductor manufacturing space are flocking to the area. And I think it's an important opportunity for the region to understand that this very advanced technology is now here. And it's very exciting for the region.
We'll have to wait and see what happens with the ASML, because the Dutch trade minister has just been to China, and they've been putting a lot of pressure on him, saying, look, why? Because they were one of the biggest customers of the ASML, because the ASML make the machines that make chips. Right. So they're right at the very beginning of the process. And then there was a lot of political pressure, certainly out of the Biden administration, of not saying, well, we won't be very happy if you're selling these machines that make machines to the Chinese. But now the Chinese are putting pressure back the other way, saying, well, look, why? Mm. Why? This is political. It's nothing to do with business. And this is the world that we're living in at the moment. So,
it's a tricky situation. There has to be more. I mean, ultimately, there has to be more collaboration if it's not going to end up in a continuing battle economically, or maybe worse. So
we're going to have two systems. It's incompatible to have one world where China is the manufacturing center and just floods everybody else. It's just not going to work. This is why Trump is in office, because the system couldn't continue the way it was continuing. Something had to change, and so.
And he's not the only one talking like that. I mean, there's lots of leaders in other countries who are saying the same thing.
You can't have
who's saying that.
We went 4 years ago. We had $22 trillion in debt. We now have 30. We're going to 36. You know, it's unsustainable.
Who cares, John? Who cares? You print the money yourselves. Who cares? You
Just
just say stop and we'll start again. I mean, what's this? Just ridiculous. This whole thing about we've got debt. You have debt to yourselves. Just wipe it all out, saying right, go back to zero, start again. Nothing to stop the world from doing
easy
that.
to say that.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, because all those multi-millionaires and billionaires, they won't have anything then, will they? They'll just have
actually,
lots of plastic.
It's individual. The very people that you talk about are the ones that hold indirectly these assets. So if you mark them to zero, you just impoverished, your entire population and
we're not impoverished at the moment. Then we're not impoverished at the moment.
Well, I mean, you make it worse. You can have some kind of.
All right, so it's a little bit of amputation or quite a lot. Then that's where what we're looking at.
And I'll go back to Europe, because since you're there in sunny Holland, the Europeans, thanks to the U.S. paying for their defense, were able to fund the socialist nirvana that you live in: free healthcare, free all sorts of stuff. There's no free system.
There's no free healthcare in Europe. There's only free healthcare in the UK.
It's not free.
It's not free. You pay for your defense and all that extra money. All that extra money is going to be needed.
That's incorrect, right? John, because the Americans contribute per ratio a lot less for NATO than many of the NATO countries.
Oh, look, Germany has less than 100,000 people in the army. That's going to go to 400,000. They're paying for it themselves. Yeah, paying for it themselves. And they're going to be buying American kit, I would imagine. Either that or Chinese. They're going to buy it from companies like Rheinmetall, which is the biggest German arms dealer manufacturer there.
But the uniforms,
the concept
the helmets,
here is
the guns, that's all going to be bought
the system's
from the US.
Going to change, right?
That's what
you can talk about all these little things.
He wants.
But the system has to change, because it's not sustainable, right? So everybody complains about Trump. Yeah, okay, Trump, but Trump is just the system. It's just the symptom. It's not the disease. The disease is all this other the imbalances that we have. The imbalances have to be adjusted. Whether they like it or not.
Okay. Let's like Europe in the 1930s. You mean that sort of thing? Wasn't Mr. Hilter that well-known typing error. That was the system. Yeah.
You don't have little Trumpists running through the streets fighting against people and putting them in. You don't have that. It's not 1930, and it's not happening like that.
Yes, you do. You have the whole of Europe is going right.
So,
at a rapid speed.
The question you should ask yourself is, why is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically because the left, all the promises that the left made have delivered nothing for a generation of people.
Multiple.
And they're just saying, and they're just saying, look, okay, guys, we gave you the bat, we put you out on the plate, we let you swing at a few balls, you missed all of them. And now, okay, so now somebody else has got to come and have a go at it. It's as simple as that. There's our generation of people who literally look at it that way. They're not political. They just think, well, you're a bunch of complete wasters. You've done nothing for us. Just waffle. And this guy says he can do something. All right, then come on, put your money where your mouth is, and let's see if it's going to happen. It's as simple as that. It's not really politics in Europe. It's just like they couldn't do it, so give them a chance.
Well, whatever.
And it's that's Germany in the 1930s. We're back to that again. It's simple as that.
No, I don't know
whatever label you want to put it. It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter. I mean, all of these subjects that we're talking about, it end up in the same bucket.
The same. These are all
system is out of balance, and we have to rebalance the the structure of how the world is operating. You can't have, what the U.S. is trying to do with tariffs, is try to get the world to realize that, hey, look, the problem that we have is also your problem, because Malaysia, Indonesia, all of Southeast Asia is getting obliterated by Chinese manufacturing. I think,
I would agree with you, John. I think that the tariffs are totally biased against the Americans, but you chose for that. That was, we followed you. They said, like, free trade, open everything up. That it all happened. The rest of the world went with that.
Well, I wouldn't go say free trade, but okay.
But I agree. So a lot of it skewed against you. I don't necessarily think that tariffs are a bad idea in relation to the fact that people are charging you coming back the other way. But, like, it's a weapon of war for Mr. Trump, is it not? One of his favorite words. And, and he's funding his lifestyle and his family's lifestyle and the lifestyle of the extremely rich people in the US has been funded by all this tariff money.
Yeah, I love the, I think you should devote your energies to fictional writing, because you come up with. Could you explain how
that tariff money is that tariff money is helping the billionaires? I don't understand that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because I'm not seeing it
on that one.
I'm not seeing the tariff money.
Yeah, Stephen's not seeing the tariff.
If I'm not seeing it, nobody else is seeing it. So
he said that all the tariff money is going to be used to reduce tax, or across the board, to put prices down across the board, or gasoline down across the board, to cut medication products. Everything's going to be slashed, and all that slack's going to be picked up by the money that's coming in through tariffs.
Well, that's what you can't tax the rich. Can't do that. So then in that case, he's helping everybody. Okay, good. We're not really seeing it. You're just saying he's just going to lower the prices for the less fortunate. All right, I'm good with that. That's fine. I got nervous. I thought I was going to have to pay tax. Stop, that's crazy. So, I have an image.
Sweden's experiment with their billionaires worked.
Yeah, John, tell us about Sweden. This is a perfect segue into that.
Yeah. All right. So, I don't know if you guys were able to read the article, but the Financial Times wrote about Sweden, and that basically the article was focused on billionaires, and there's such a lot of billionaires now in Sweden, and compared to other countries proportionally, right? Population-wise, there's something like $45 billion billionaires in Sweden. The discussion there, is good, because everybody has this impression that Sweden is a socialist paradise, and it's really not a socialist country. It's just it took so from the 1800s to 1864, Sweden was a very successful country. It was actually poor, right? It was poor, and then in the 1870s until the 1970s, it sort of transformed themselves. But in between there, and from the 50s to the 70s, the Swedish Democrats went totally socialist. They became high tax, a lot of regulations, and what happened was businesses, entrepreneurs just left. The place became very, very poor compared to the rest of Europe, right?
Didn't work. Yeah,
it didn't work. So what happened was, even the founder of IKEA, he left, right? That's one of the big, sort of big people that left at that time, right? Because it was really high taxes on businesses and individuals. It wasn't just
inheritance tax, gift tax, wealth tax.
Yeah. So in the 70s, the Social Democrats actually had the smarts to realize that hey, this isn't working, and so they went from markedly anti-business policies to pro-business. And Sweden is not really a socialist country. It's a pro-business free market economy, and they got rid of all these bad taxes that disincentivize people from leaving and creating jobs and entrepreneurship, creating new companies. Now Sweden is considered the model for Europe, right? Very active entrepreneurial spirit there. The incentive to stay and create privately held companies is they're the number one in Europe. But they have, I think, they've created, they've had more IPOs than the rest of Europe combined.
500 companies went public in Sweden in the past 10 years, which is more than France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Spain.
Right, yeah, the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
So
the rest of Europe. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think that Stockholm ranks second only to Silicon Valley in terms of unicorns per capita. So yes, much smaller country, much smaller location, but still huge successes. And the Swedes, the important thing is, from the article at least, is that the Swedes themselves do not agree with this guy who came in and said all of these billionaires are bad for the economy. Right. The Swedes themselves seem to agree that everything is kosher and all is Jewish. Well.
Who knew?
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
I think it's a good lesson, for the politicians in other places that have this negative rhetoric, about business and people that are successful. That's just. Just rotten. It's a rotten thinking. It just doesn't lead anywhere, because if you don't expand the pie, nobody benefits. Just redistributing the pie. And even if you tax the rich 100%, you still don't solve the problems, because
it's not enough. It's not enough anyway.
It's not enough.
Don't tax the rich. Stop talking. Shh.
But the issue is, John, who owns the original pie that's being expanded? That's the crux.
Well, the Jews, David. The Jews, we own everything. So we own the original pie. We let you guys think you got something. The original pie is all us. We have space lasers. We own the entertainment and the banks. That's the way it goes. So it's just
think of the 500 companies that IPO'd in Sweden. Do you think they started, from billionaires? No, they were all small enterprises.
They're all flat packed. That's what it was.
Yeah, they're all small enterprises. So, that's
let's cover
that doesn't fly. They became billionaires because they were successful and they created something that people needed and wanted to buy, or maybe export too. So I don't buy that argument.
Like meatballs. Yeah, like meatballs. Yeah. It was very good. Let's do something. Let's cover two things really quick. One, Elon Musk is just incorporated in America, and two, let's discuss this Boeing thing. That's fascinating.
Quick highlight on America, right? Interesting and unfortunate. Seems like things are happening. Boeing is maybe going to get off the hook.
No, they're off. They're paying a fine.
They're paying and pretty big fines. But the families were saying they don't care about the money. They want the company to be prosecuted.
Correct. So what happened was Boeing made a deal with the DOJ, saying that they're not going to face criminal prosecution if they pay, I think it's a $500 or $600 million fine to the families, restitution for the deaths of their loved ones, and then admit wrongdoing. And the families are saying that's bullshit. We want Boeing criminally prosecuted for their negligence. And as Michael just said, we don't care about the money. So that's a very interesting thing. I have a feeling there's going to be many, many lawsuits in this area. I don't think.
And when did this announcement come out? After Boeing got this wonderful order from the Saudis?
No, this is about a week or so old. This came out literally after last week's show. Has nothing to do with the Qatari order. I'm just saying this has been in the court system for a while. So, and to the family's point, if you're criminally negligent, you should be charged. It's that simple. But we're not in that era anymore.
if you did it or we did it, we'd be incarcerated now.
Right.
So
well, we'll see. All right. Well, that's up we got for Boeing. And then Michael's got a story about Elon Musk.
And you want to be careful with Boeing because all those whistleblowers. You don't want to be one of those.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you end up dead. So, but the good thing is, if you're the Boeing CEO, you make $35 million a year, so your spacecraft can't get to wherever it has to go and bring people back, and your planes crash, and the Qatari government buys stuff from you.
The fact is, Boeing admitted that some of their employees misled the Federal Aviation Administration about that new feature on the 737 MAX, that automated cockpit feature.
Yep.
And there was a lot of I saw an article on there was a lack of training around it, and people just didn't understand it, and they just implemented it without safety, making sure that everybody understood how to use it.
Right.
But the problem is I mean, don't you think if you don't have criminal charges in some way, then it kind of creates this environment where people are going to be more lackluster about their responsibility to the FAA, to
anybody, to cars. Well, here's the perfect example. Back in the day, and most people are not going to remember the Ford Pinto, but remember the Ford Pinto had something where if you hit the back of it in an accident, it would explode, and the Ford Motor Company knew about it, and they were not criminally charged for their negligence. They paid a big fine, paid off the families, and that was it. So we have precedence in doing that. So I don't know what you ultimately need to do as a company in America to have the DOJ go, you're criminally negligent.
Right.
Not like now in Thailand, in Thailand, a builder is going to jail because he built a crappy building and the government said, you're criminally negligent. And I'm like, kudos for you. So we just have a standard that, listen, you said you're sorry, pay them $1 billion, let it go. Where other countries are like, no, you've screwed up, you go to jail. And
well, we have an excellent example of that. The Catholic Church. You just go and pay your fine, and then everything's tickety boo.
No, there you go. Because it's because you couldn't put a priest in jail. He'd enjoy it too much. Anyway, we're here to Thursday. Keep your waitstaff. Okay, stop it. There's what? Listen, I talked to Pope Bobby. We're very close now. Pope Bobby and I were like this, and I said, Pope Bobby, you should call yourself Pope Bobby, not this make believe fakakta name. And he's thinking about it, but Pope Bobby's okay with that. Tell us about Elon Musk taking over Texas, because this is really too funny.
Well, he's got a Starbase in Texas, and so they only have maybe 250 people who work for SpaceX living in this now. It's 1.6 square mile town.
Brownsville, Texas. Yep.
Yeah, and the thing is, it gives. I mean, the facility itself has been there since 2014, but they only now incorporate it as an actual town, so they can have their own fire department, their own police department, their own building codes. It's not quite clear what the value of having that is, except that you get, I guess, the people running the town, which they're all under Musk anyway, get to do things like call their street names LBJ Boulevard and Memes Street, and put a bronze statue of Elon Musk's bust, calling it Elon, aka Meme Lord, which is just really hard to swallow.
So unfortunately, welcome to Texas. And they listen to Texas's credit. They make everything easy here. So that's true. Doing business in Texas is not that hard. Apparently, making your own city isn't that hard either. So I think there's a pro and a con to it. Listen, it's no different than when Walt Disney went into Orlando back in the day and bought umpteen million acres and made this thing called Disney World. And they have their own police, their own fire, their own this, they have everything as well. They did the same thing until Rick DeSantis got upset because the gay guy wouldn't blow him. And then, he started a fight with Disney that didn't work and they backed off. But this is not like the first time someone's ever done that. They've had corporate towns back in the 1800s. Sure. So this is not anything where people are like, oh my God. But I think because it's Musk, it is because everyone just thinks there's something nefarious, and there probably is. Where Disney just wanted to have this futuristic playground for people, and that's what he did, and that's so.
That's a blueprint for Musk, then, isn't it? This futuristic playground for people.
We'll see.
There are a lot of people who are visiting Starbase because they're in awe of and want to see the rockets. So at least there's as you were saying earlier, David, this is a place for them to go home to and visit.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people making a lot of money running these YouTube channels, which just live stream just the whole place and all the launches and everything, and so oh, it's a rocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I think we should go to Lost and Found, boys. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's right.
Ever wonder how millions vanish into thin air, or how a single dollar can make all the difference? Join us on Lost and Found, where we dive into the wild world of financial mysteries. From misplaced fortunes to unexpected windfalls, we unravel the stories of people, companies, organizations, and even governments who've lost and found millions. Lost and Found, because every dollar has a story.
And here we are. Johnny? Oh, Johnny looks like a 107-year-old grandfather. What do you got, Johnny?
All right. There's a company called Phoenix International that owns OnlyFans.com. And
I was going to talk about this. You took my story, John.
And they're exploring of selling the wonderful business for $8 billion, and the company that's looking to buy it is thinking of doing a SPAC and then going public. So I think we can all be shareholders of this profitable enterprise. So
public pussy for everybody then.
Yeah.
Basically.
So I think billions won here. Lots of
billions won. Yeah, about to be won. Yes.
Yeah. So.
He was going to talk. It was in the FT this morning, and I saw that, and I just started to laugh. I'm surprised they're going to do it as a SPAC, though, because SPACs.
Why not? There's no regulation there, right?
It's a typo.
It's a pre-made company that's already public.
No, I understand that, but why would you do that? Because you're not going to make as much money. I mean, if you took
David's right. David's right. It sounds like Spank.
It's a SPAC. It's a typo.
It's a SPAC.
Yeah.
But no, my point is though, if I'm running OnlyFans, why would I put it into a SPAC with a already public company? I mean, granted, the shares are going to pop. That's fine. It's almost like borderline inside trading. But why would I do that instead of just going through a regular IPO where I can cash out 100 times more? So I'm not really understanding. When I read that, I didn't understand the idea of a SPAC. I know what a SPAC is.
It's not well thought out.
I don't understand why the SPAC. I mean, they don't have to tell me because they're a British company. But I mean, LSE doesn't really do SPACs. We do SPACs. And I'm thinking, okay, are you going to do a dual listing? Are you going to do ADRs and GDR? But why a SPAC? I don't understand the logic unless somebody that's on their board owns the SPAC and he's talked them into like, hey, do this SPAC. I'll give you stock. And he's like, I'm going to make a shitload of money tomorrow. So I don't really get the SPAC thing where why wouldn't I just hire XYZ investment firm, do the proper stuff and make a shitload of money? Because SPACs usually lose money. So I see it popping and then dropping immediately. So like, it's almost like,
right, you heard on here.
Yeah. But when it pops, short the stock. Because I mean, SPACs don't do well. There's only a handful that have done well. Most don't. So I don't know. I don't understand that story.
So everybody's looking forward to getting a spanking from a SPAC then.
There you go. I guess. Well, they will, because that's what usually happens.
Well, let me tell you a company that I'm now disappointed with. Very unfortunate. This is a dollar lost for a darling in the AI space, Nvidia. So Nvidia, they launched a $300 graphics card, which was supposed to be the best-selling GPU of a whole generation of GPUs. And the problem is, when they launched it, the predecessor in 2022, the reviews were very harsh. And so in an effort, it seems, to make sure that the launch of this new one goes well, Nvidia actually took some measures to make sure that the reviewers only said positive things about it. And in fact, even had some sort of agreement that allowed specific cherry-picked reviewers to test the graphics card only on a certain set of games at a certain set of resolutions, and only against weaker cards. So basically, they're trying to manipulate the reviews market for this card, and it's a whole. Slashdot, of course, has a huge write-up on it, and The Verge, which is obviously very popular in the tech industry, says it should be a wake-up call for gamers and reviewers that this stuff cannot be trusted. So that's very unfortunate.
So I think really for Nvidia, then it's a win.
They've actually reached out to us, Nvidia, and asked if we wanted to review. And I think I forwarded an email to David here at the show at 2OF and said, "We like what you do. Would you like to review our stuff?" And I was like, "What do you want us to review?" And it was their chip to get the. And I wrote back like, "Sure, but we don't have a gamer." And like, I can give it to, I guess, Michael. He'll do it. But I'm like, we can do it. And there was like these, and then the email came back, said, "Okay, but we need the following." So I guess this is part of it. I never really gave it a second thought. But they actually asked us here at the show.
Wow!
All right. Their products. Yeah. So we did get an email.
Now we're rising up. Lost Dollar Business Club, Too Old Fart Entertainment is rising.
No, the 2OF Entertainment Networks we get stuff all the time. Most of it we turn down because it's sort of like no. And that was one of them. It's like very honored that they asked us, but it was sort of like when I was reading it, I was just sort of like, we're the wrong channel for that. We don't have a gamer. Like the closest thing we have for a gamer is Michael. And I'm like, that's it. That's the closest gamer we have. So I don't think that you want. I really wrote them. I said, I don't think you really want. I said, you don't think you've seen our channel. So we've got 26 shows, none of them about gaming. So, and we're really honest. So you probably don't want us, because if you suck, we'll tell you suck. So I'm like, this is the wrong group of guys to ask to review something.
But one positive move, I think, is OpenAI partnering with Johnny Ive's team to ship these little AI
little somethings, little
somethings sometime next year. So we'll see. I mean, because Ive was the brains behind the good looking Apple products.
Well,
so
6.8 billion they're buying his company for 6.2. 6 billion plus, let's just say. So it's good to be Johnny Ives.
Yeah, that's right.
Not bad to be Johnny Ives. I've got nothing, because those was the only stories I've got. A big, long, drawn out thing, kind of like Apple and China thing. We can do that one next week. So, David, bring us home with the last lost and found?
Yeah, well, this is a serious business show, and this one I saw seriously, and this. I'll give a little bit of backstory to it for a start. There's a real issue in the aviation industry. It starts off basically with security for ground personnel. So people who are loading stuff into airplanes, you have to go through this huge security check. It slows down the whole of the process. When COVID came, they put a lot of people left, went into other industries because they didn't think that it was particularly of any value to them. So this whole thing of loading cargo onto aeroplanes is a very complicated and a very costly activity. And now this, because I love my robots, this robotic company has teamed up with Swissport, and they're testing this now in Zurich airport. And this is the first of its kind. And I think this will revolutionize at least the cargo part of loading and unloading airplanes. Totally automated. Just does its thing, knows where it has to go, and this will solve a lot of problems.
Is anybody so now the robot is going to throw my bag 20 feet into the plane?
No, that's still the issue, because strangely enough, that's actually done by people who actually have to crawl in to the belly of the airplane, and that's the problem as well, because that's literally a back-breaking job. So they're having terrible trouble getting people to do that, because it's and the ground crew is because anybody that goes onto that tarmac has to be screened for security, etc. So it's an incredibly drawn out and costly affair. So they're trying to cut down the costs by at least automating a lot of the cargo. So this company is they do a lot of stuff already. A lot of these automated transports in factories and stuff like that. But this is the first one that's going to be approved, currently being tested at Zurich Airport. And if it works, it'll be everywhere. So you'll see these tugs on the tarmac. Something a little bit different for me this week.
Yes.
Interesting. How does it work?
Serious.
That's what I want to know.
It's totally AI. It's all programmed. Knows exactly what's
but
going
how
to
do
go.
I get my bag? How do I get my bag from the? They're going to put it in that little container, and then the little container is going to take it and get it to the conveyor belt.
Yeah. No. This particular one. They're using for bulk cargo to get take the larger stuff in, because the planes themselves will have to be altered if you're going to do it the other way around. In which case, you'll have, because like I said at the moment, there are literally guys that crawl in the belly of these airplanes, and and chain hand chains of people pulling all these bags. You have lots of industrial industries, a lot of people who can't work, etc., etc. So the whole chain of events will have to change. But they've decided to have a look at this stuff just on the tarmac at the beginning, and this will be the way forward. They'll literally just load that in like a cassette, I think, when the airplanes are designed to fit them in, and then take them out.
Very
so
cool.
It should be quicker, should be safer.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Well, it was a good one.
Fine.
Not the usual one. All right, Michael, who do we have coming next Friday?
All right. So we've got someone to talk about how we've had Guy Standing talk about universal basic income, right? And we've talked a little bit about it on the show, but we have somebody that's been talking a lot on LinkedIn, Anthony Astbury, where he suggests that UBI actually is kind of like a digital prison. And he's very staunchly against it. He's got some good points. So he'll be on the show to talk to us about the warning around letting centralized currencies basically control the economy. So
cool. Which they do
we'll
now.
be talking about that next week.
He's $1 late and a day short, but that'll be fun. All right, boys, as we say, thanks for everybody watching live. If you watch the rebroadcast on Saturday morning, welcome. And when you get your podcasts, we're here. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and we'll be back next Friday, as Michael said, with a guest. And we'll see everybody then. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers.
All right.
Bye-bye.